control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at spacedoutradio.com, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Game on! Game on! Game on!
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
The password is...
Alright.
Okay, seriously, what's with the pointies?
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
Seriously, Dave? Really?
Hi, Chloe. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Captain, take your seat on my left. It's time for takeoff.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 2, 1, boost ignition, and liftoff.
Just to be there with you, and I still trip over my feet, and my heart still skips a beat. I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this fantastic and beautiful planet we like to call Earth. What's going on, space travelers? Good to have you with us as we are live right here, right now, on the Great White North, the snowy Great White North, which is covering up Uncle Jimbo's cabin this Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, if you're on the East Coast. We want to welcome in everyone listening in at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. As we do this thing every night of the week, rocking in and out of every single show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. You know what? You can also add us on iTunes, and of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can check out a plethora of features, and we'll get into those momentarily. If you want to take part in this show, though, you have to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, on the UPRN chat room, live on Spreaker, at Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club, and so much more. Hey, if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get to you there as well, your questions, your comments, and so much more as well. So we're rocking it in right now. If you haven't signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it is $5 a month. With that, your name gets entered into private group interviews. You get access to special posting sections on our website and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, what you need to do is you need to check out my latest blog. It's on the orphan listeners that we have going. You know, there's a lot of them out there. We're trying to get them into this territory. And you can also read up on Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news. And if you've had a sighting report that you just cannot explain, what I suggest you do is you fill out an SOR Sightlines report. When you go to that Sightlines report, what you got to do is fill it out. Mike Schmidt is going to get to it. He's going to check it out, read it over, then get back to you with some questions. That way we can put it up on our website. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes, my home away from home, Sin City. And we want to thank everyone listening in on our latest affiliate, the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along with us. We're hearing rumors that our numbers on UPRN are somewhere around 80,000 people now. Christina George told me that last night because she's seen the numbers for the station. 80,000. I got to see those for myself before I believe them. But that's a lot of people. And remember, if you're listening in on the Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. All right. It's the second Wednesday of the month, which means one of our most popular guests to the show is back for his monthly segment. You know the gentleman around these parts as the Crypto Guru. Yes, author Ronald Murphy is one of the fastest growing names in the world of cryptids. So much so that his love and passion of writing combined with his love of the cryptid world is such a great combination for storytelling. And when Ron gets into it, he takes it seriously. Whether it's plain folklore or the truth is behind the sightings at hand, Ron's ability to manicure the right words is just a talent on its own. So much so, his latest books, which is called the On series, have actually garnered so much attention recently that he's been picked up by the Fortean Center, the Center for Fortean Zoology. They've just purchased it and will be publishing it worldwide. That's awesome. Ron's specialties include looking deep into fairy realm, which in his mind includes the elusive creatures like Bigfoot and Dogman. Tonight we're also going to go into the land of Bigfoot and the latest intrigue of the Crypto Guru. The stories combining Bigfoot with UFOs, is there a correlation between the two? We're trying to find out right now. But of course, Skype is being Skype again tonight. So we're going to have to call up the Crypto Guru. And I'm just going to let him know here on Skype. Calling you. And hopefully we can hook up. Skype is my nemesis, as you know. You just never know. And the funny part about it is, like 3 minutes before showtime, Ron and I were actually connected on Skype. And I'm like, yeah, I'll call you back in 3 minutes. But of course, Skype being Skype is just the way it is sometimes. So let's see if we can find the Crypto Guru's phone number here. You know, I feel like I should play a Jeopardy theme song right now. I don't know. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. When he comes on, we're going to get into an interesting topic here. Because the whole contact aspect that people have with extraterrestrials can be deceiving. It can be a little bit weird, strange. You heard a little bit with Nancy Duterte last night. But the one thing that we can do is is we could put it together that there is something going on with these extraterrestrials. There is something going on when they are sitting here and trying to figure out, why are they taking us? Why are they taking the animals? We've heard of cattle mutilations, other animal mutilations. And let me tell you, it's a little bit different when it gets into something like Sasquatch. Because a lot of people just believe, and we've had a number of researchers on here, as you've heard in the past, a lot of research, you believe, is something that is, that Sasquatch is just a regular creature. Sasquatch is something that is Gigantopithecus, great ape. You know how it goes. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the Revolution Radio feed right now. I'm going to try and bring it through. I'm going to try and bring Ron through. So if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, bear with us. Now that Revolution Radio is gone, I have to tell you, sometimes they are a pain in my ass, because I just think that Skype issue has something to do with their feed and not mine. Let's see if I can get the Crypto Guru here. All right, we got Ronald Murphy on with us. Now we got to try and hook up with Revolution Radio once again. Guru, are you there?
I am here. Hey, is it my problem or is it
No, it's not your problem whatsoever. Sometimes Skype gets a little finicky with us and with the Revolution Radio feed, so I'm just kind of playing around here. So I know I can get you on this end. What I'm going to do, and I hate to do this because it sounds so amateur, I'm going to try and reconnect with Revolution Radio and reconnect with you. And if I can't reconnect with you, I'll cut that feed tonight and just we'll do this show otherwise. So bear with me 2 seconds here, okay?
Sure.
All right. So we're going to get this done with the Crypto Guru, but damn it, I hate Skype. I really do. This is why we need to get more listeners in order to get us into a real studio, so we don't have to worry about Skype problems. Because Skype is just a pain in the butt. Let's see if it'll connect this time. Yes, we got the Crypto Guru now. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I thought this was the result of our first winter storm here in western Pennsylvania of the year. We got about 6 inches of snow out there. It's laying down about 2 inches per hour. But I'm glad that that's not the case. However, I have Comcast, so all of my services are through Comcast. And I do know for a fact that they are now out. So I do not even have a landline. So I'm glad this is working right now because I'm picking up a signal from another provider right now. So this is great.
Oh, you're sounding beautiful as per usual, my friend. And I can restart my heart because it gets a little ticky when all of a sudden we start getting into these silly computer problems. And, when you're a one-man show like I am, where you're trying to talk, you're trying to produce, you're trying to do absolutely everything, it gets a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, my friend.
I can imagine.
It really does. But you know what? We are going to get things going. So I hope they didn't mind, that my audience didn't mind me mumbling and jumbling my way through that. But it's one of those things that sometimes we cannot control the land of Skype.
That's right. And what would a good paranormal show be unless we had some gremlins on hand,
Well, we like to call them gnomes around here because I hate my gnomes.
I do know that for a fact.
Yes. So what's new, my friend? You have some exciting news that the Center for Fortean Zoology has picked up your On series.
They have. So all the my previous books and now all my future books on the On series will be published by the Center for Fortean Zoology out of England. So now Ingram will be carrying the books in the USA and Canada. So you'll now be able to get them at every bookstore instead of just going to Amazon. So this is a great thing for me. But I think the biggest highlight, Dave, to be totally honest with you, is that in just a few short months, I will be with you in person at the Provincetown Paranormal Conference.
I know.
I will be speaking at 9 a.m. on vampires, and you will be speaking at noon on the media and the paranormal. And I think that everybody who is hearing our voice right now needs to make a pilgrimage there to meet us both.
Absolutely, and you've promised not to cut your beard until then.
That's it is getting to the point now where this is the longest I've ever had my beard.
Nice.
But you got to go with it because I like to go walking around and showing people my unabashed virility and my unabashed masculinity. And I've seen some younger people, 21 years old, actually brought to tears whenever I'm in their presence with this beard.
Well, that's just kind of the way it goes, I mean,
it is.
When you're packing some serious facial heat like that,
that's right.
You gotta run with it, and you gotta show these young kids, that's a beard. No, boys, come check this out.
Exactly. Well, like I like to point out to my wife, at the stage that you and I are in right now, Dave, is that when we go into a room, we have to naturally expect that every woman in that room wants to be with us, and most of the men as well. So, I mean, that's just something we have to deal with now.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous,
And if they want to experience this in person, if they do not believe what we have to say, I urge you now to the gauntlet is thrown down. Come to the Provincetown Paranormal Conference and find out for yourself.
Yes, we're going to have to do this, my friend. We're going to have to do this. I look forward to it, and it's something that I'm going to have a lot of fun with because I've never been as far east as Boston.
That's right.
And Provincetown, which is just a little bit more east. And, to have Sam Baltrusis, who will be the guest on this show on Friday night, to have him take the time to think that I would be a good candidate for that, knowing that we're still up and coming as a late-night talk show, I think it's a good step because there's a lot of people, and I'm actually quite happy that, we're going to be going to the Provincetown Paracon. Not only do we get to speak, but it's going to give a whole plethora of people an opportunity to know who we are and know that they have options for their nighttime listening as well. So, I mean, it just couldn't be at a better time, and I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be more so for myself and this show. And Eric Markham's going to be there from our team. Everett Thiemer's going to be there from our team. When we're there, it's going to be so much more important for us to network who we are, what we're about, and I'm just really looking forward to that more than actually speaking, as much as I love speaking, so it's something that is going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. And really, truly, I mean, this is my first time that I've been up to the Boston area before, but this is my first conference up in the New England area. So, and I'm honored actually to be there with you. And I say this every time I come on, without you giving me my first shot at paranormal radio, I would not be the person that I am today. So thank you again, Dave. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. And maybe we'll get a lobster dinner or something like that.
I would like that. I'm not traveling to the East Coast without going for a lobster dinner.
That's right.
Absolutely. We're picking out on that.
Yeah, we were up in Maine a few years ago. My wife was pregnant with her youngest child, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy her a lobster dinner. You can see the fleets going out in the morning, and they brought back the fresh lobster. So you could get like a lobster dinner for like $6. So I thought, I'll walk down to the local little the pub down there, and I brought back these 2 lobster dinners. I paid a total of about $13 for them, and she would not even taste one because her stomach was sick. So I had to eat 2 lobsters by myself, and I had absolutely no problem doing it.
Mm-hmm. Eric Markham wants to know: are we going to go out and do the ghost tour?
You know what? That's a great point. However, I don't think that I want to pay the $99 for it. If they would tell us we could come along, that would be okay. But I think that might be a little bit out of my budget. But I would urge anybody that does have $99 to most certainly go out on the ghost tour.
I'm sure we could have some pull, considering our speakers.
That's right. We'll see what happens.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to go on the ghost tour because I look at it this way. I got a lot of people I got to meet and shake hands with and spend some time with. And me, as much as I love the paranormal, I'm not really a ghost guy. So it's one of those things where I just may sidestep that one, and just hang out with other people, see what other people are doing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a unique type of conference. While it is going to be rather heavy on the ghostly activities, which is understandable for that neck of the woods, it's not going to be all about ghosts. So, I mean, look, you're going to be there talking about things other than ghosts. I'm going to start the thing off talking about vampires. But, I mean, if you think there's any place in the continental United States that's haunted, it's definitely going to be New England. And this is right in Provincetown, so it's out on Cape Cod. This is the first stop where the Pilgrims landed before they made it to Plymouth Rock. So it's really going to be a cool, interesting atmosphere and an ambience, and I really cannot wait to get this thing started. Just a few months away, but it seems like forever. It's like a kid waiting for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. Skeptic at #SpaceOutRadio on Twitter says, "Take the ghost tour, Dave. You'll hear things that go bump in the night." Well, I got to tell you, Ron, the other night I'm doing this show, and I have never in my life, out of all the paranormal experiences I've had, I've never had, been sitting here and have, been touched. You get people who have their arms grabbed or shoulders grabbed or, their hair matted down or something along those lines. I'd never had that happen. And twice the other night, probably within 10 minutes, I had my chair pushed. And at first I thought it was my dog, because a lot of times my dog will hang out in here with me during the show. So I'm turning around my chair, courtesy of a nice Christmas present from Eric Markham, and I'm looking around, looking for my dog. Okay, my dog isn't there. Okay, is it the cat? Is the cat around here? Because a cat can be a jerk like that. You know how cats can be. And there was no cat. And my chair got shoved and pushed in twice.
Wow. Maybe it'd be better if you do not go out on the ghost tour, because you do have this kind of weird attachment associated with you. It's like that gosh darn that doll thing that had come and visited you while you were doing the program.
Oh, I know. That still scares me.
Yeah, that scares the heck out of me too, just thinking about it.
I know, but that's why we're here, to have those experiences.
That's right. And we get to have them together. We get to share them with all the people in the Space Travelers Room. And, you can't beat this. I mean, I do this one time a month with you, but I look forward to it every single time because you can't beat this kind of audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get to the audience, because you and I could literally BS our way through 3 hours and accomplish absolutely nothing.
That's right. That's right.
So, literally, I mean, that's why, we got to get to Provincetown, man, and have a good convo. Your poor wife will be asleep and we'll still be going.
That's right. Exactly.
But we have never gone on this topic with you before. And we've talked Bigfoot, we've talked aliens with you, a very minimal amount of time with aliens because you're more of our cryptid guy. But I'm wondering when you started taking a look at the connection, if there is one, between Bigfoot and UFOs.
The first time that I actually considered it, was whenever I was 6 years old, if you can believe it. And that is because one of my favorite television shows was The $6 Million Man. And on one of those episodes, he met Bigfoot. And as a kid who loved Bigfoot, I was so excited to watch this program. And there's Steve Austin meets Bigfoot in the woods of California. They clash, they fight for a little bit, and then the $6 Million Man grabs Bigfoot's arm and rips it off, revealing that Bigfoot is not a flesh and blood animal, but merely a minion of an alien race, and it's a robot. So it was me in grade school watching the $6 Million Man, and they were trying to feed me that my beloved Bigfoot was a robot of extraterrestrial origin. And it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But as a researcher now, now in my 40s, looking back on it, I found out that the first occasion whenever Bigfoot was officially mentioned, linked with extraterrestrial activity, was in 1973. So actually the $6 Million Man was playing off something that was just a burgeoning then in the media, only 3 years before, when people were reporting seeing UFOs entering and exiting UFO. Bigfoot was seen entering and exiting UFOs. And I thought, well, this is great. There's something going on. And the more research that I've done and the more places I've traveled and the more people that I've spoken with, I find out that this phenomenon is not something, out of left field. People have been reporting this, but researchers have not been, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to put it in a certain genre or classification. Is this UFO? Is this Bigfoot related? What the heck is going on? And unfortunately in this field, some people who have reports that don't make any sense to them, they simply file them away and nothing's ever done about it. So that's why I keep on stressing to have an open mind. But people have been reporting this for a while, Dave.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we need to cover tonight is the connection between the two. But I think at first what we need to get into is a little bit about Bigfoot, because I had on last week Todd Neese and Tom Seawood, okay? Two Bigfoot investigators. Both believe it's a hominid type creature. Both believe it might be ape-like, maybe Gigantopithecus, maybe Nephilim connection, or something along those lines. And they do not believe anything that is spiritual about Bigfoot, anything that might be supernatural about it. And, these are hardcore people who have had sightings, who have had experiences, who are now looking for this. Do you believe that Bigfoot is just some natural hominid to North America, or do you believe that there is something a little bit more supernatural about this creature?
If you would have asked me a decade ago, I would have been in the ape category. Not so much the ape, but I would have been. I would see it as a hominin of some kind. People used to call it a missing link. Not so much Gigantopithecus, because that the jury's still out on that. We have a little bit of a jawbone and some teeth, so nothing really to build a credible evidence in even what the Gigantopithecus looked like. But a decade ago, I would have been firmly saying that this is some sort of ape-like creature. However, now, with all the evidence that I've been getting, and even looking into the world mythologies around the world, especially First Nation beliefs, the spiritual aspect of the Bigfoot or Sasquatch, whichever name he goes in by whichever indigenous tongue we refer to, it is overwhelming that this is a creature that has a spiritual origin more than a physical origin. It's still a fascinating thing to investigate, and just because it might be spiritual does not mean it does not have a physical manifestation either. So we talk about other dimensions. We talk about quantum physics sometimes whenever we deal with Bigfoot. My friend Ron Moorhead is coming out with a book here very shortly that everybody needs to read called The Quantum Bigfoot. So there's this tendency to think that this creature just resides in the deep woods of the Pacific Northwest. But if we look at quantum physics and the idea of interdimensionality, then this creature could indeed appear all around the world in different places. Bigfoot have been reported even in cities. And so what's going on with that? It seems that there's something otherworldly to this creature as well, and that's one of the things that I'm so fascinated now as being a researcher, that I get to delve into these kind of new ideas that have just come about in the last couple of years.
And when Tom Seawood was on, and he's going to be back on the show on March 7th. Here is a First Nations man who believes all the legends and lore, I'll use his term, is just a bunch of woo-woo. And I questioned him on that. And I said, you are mistaking your own opinion as fact. There's nothing scientific about that. I said, people are having strange experiences. You can't tell me that everybody is a bad photographer or videographer, that it always comes out blurry. I know with my own personal experiences, I do believe there is something a little bit more special with this creature. And that's my personal belief. I said, so why are you ruling it out just because the stories sound hokey? He couldn't answer that.
Yeah, and he being a First Nations person as well, like you had said.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what they're doing, and I'm not going to say that everybody that scoffs at First Nation reports is ethnocentric or whatever. But if you would take the tradition of Native Americans saying that this creature is of the spirit world, then let's investigate why. Now, what is fascinating is if you look at the other cultures around the world, like with the Yeti is primarily a religious animal. It fits in their cosmology. And if you look at the Yowie in Australia, that is a creature that figures in the dream time of the Aborigines. So all around the world, we are finding this idea, this notion of these giant human-like creatures that exist in a world right beyond ours, right behind the veil that separates this world from the other world. Now, I like to talk with the experiencer. I've never experienced Bigfoot. You, my friend, have. And the stories that you share about your experiences leads me to believe that the Bigfoot that we talk about is not wholly flesh and blood. It exists in another realm, and it's of some sort of metaphysical element that we just do not, comprehend at this moment.
And that's what really, I guess, upsets me about a lot of Bigfoot investigators. And I'm going to start, and I made a commitment to myself, and actually Everett Themer, one of the gentlemen who helps me out behind the scenes, he actually, called me out on it. He's like, Dave, you got to start challenging some of these guys a little bit more, because I don't think I'm doing my audience, Ron, a very good service if I hear these guys coming on, and I'm not a big, magical factor kind of guy here. Okay, I can only go by what I've experienced personally, and then forge my thoughts from the experts. But I guess one of the things that I'm getting fed up with in this field is whether it's Bigfoot researchers, whether it's ufologists, whether it's paranormal investigators, who continue, Ron, to throw opinion out as if it's proven scientific fact. And they are eliminating theories before they've even investigated them. That's not scientific at all.
It's not. There's no scientific method in that whatsoever. What is going on in the field of not only Bigfoot research, but ufology and really any other kind of paranormal research is people are going into a place with preconceived notions, and they're taking, whether it be a ghost or an alien or a Bigfoot, and bending that being into what they want to see. So there's no scientific method. There's no observation going on. There's no recording to find out what kind of things could be going on here. The verdict has already been rendered by these people for the most part. So there is no new evidence coming about. They will go out and knock on trees in the middle of the night, but they won't look into the idea that there might be a spiritual reality to the Bigfoot legends. It makes no sense to me at all.
Gail has a question in the Space Out Radio chat room, or make that on the SOR Space Travelers. Recently on Space Out Weekend, Joanna the Medium came on channeling her ET guy, Rob, who said that Bigfoot is brought to Earth to mate with Earth animals, specifically bears. What's your opinion of that?
Well, that's interesting, and you don't want to just, like I said, we have to come at this as an open mind. So I'm not going to scoff at that. And one of the reasons I'm not going to just, take that offhandedly and dismiss it is that we have to think about the evidence that was found in the Nepal and in the Himalaya region of a hair which was believed to be of a Yeti, and it turned out to be the hair of a polar bear. Not just any kind of polar bear, but a very different form, an early type of form of a polar bear, to show that there might indeed be some sort of relation between a primitive bear sighting and what we would call a Yeti sighting. So to think that this is, something, that's laughable, no, not to me. Actually, it might be elucidating the fact that there are things out there that we simply do not understand, possibly even, some sort of Pleistocene bear that is still hanging around in the Himalayas. But the idea of a Bigfoot mating with the bear, that might also be some way of pertaining to a DNA manipulation, which is interesting. I think that we'll get into a little bit later as well, that if there is indeed a Bigfoot UFO connection, is that because they are from another planet, or are Bigfoot from this planet, and the DNA has only been manipulated to serve what these extraterrestrial intelligences wanted to do?
So when you take the researchers, focusing on the researchers for a moment here, when you look at researchers who are out there trying to prove the experience and the existence of this creature, and maybe they haven't seen it. I know researchers who have not seen a Bigfoot. I know researchers who have claimed that they've seen something. They don't know what they saw, and I've had experiencers on this show, researchers and experiencers, who've said that they've felt the hand of Bigfoot through a tent on their face. I've had it all on this show. How does the public, in your opinion then, Ron, know what to believe in regards to this creature? Because we have people saying, I'm not going out in the forest unless I got my 308 or my AK-47. And we also got people who are going out there saying, no, Bigfoot actually does not like the smell of gunpowder, therefore will not show itself around when it smells guns or gunpowder, pardon me. So what are we supposed to believe, in your opinion?
And that's a good point whenever you use the word believe. That has a quasi religious aspect to that word. And we should not look at this as a religion. We should not look at the paranormal as a set of rules that we have to abide by, because these things don't abide by rules. Because they exist outside the realm of science does not mean that our physics cannot explain them. So whenever we deal with things like quantum physics, that's coming into more and more of a play, this theoretical field where these things might be coming from and how they interact with our world. But the idea of believing in something and to having a faith in it, that's very dangerous from a scientific aspect, because what we're doing is we're going in with preconceived notions. And preconceived notions in science, it's okay to test a hypothesis, but if that hypothesis does not play out, then we have to rethink our stance. And people have been seeing Bigfoot now since at least the time of the Patterson-Gimlin film as being, something that is as a hominid of some kind. So for 50 years, people have been researching that the Bigfoot is nothing more than a terrestrial ape, for lack of a better term, an ape man, a wild man of some kind. That's not playing out very well. So we had 50 years, we had half a century to research in that respect. Now let's give it its due, and let's look outside the box and see what we come up with. Let's talk with experiencers like you. As many people that I've heard say that they have had a Bigfoot walk up past their tent, or put the hand up against the tent and they can see the outline. As many people have told me that, just as many people have told me about seeing Bigfoots that appear to have been cloaking themselves. Back in as early as 1973, there were reports in western Pennsylvania of Bigfoots being seen that were going through the woods that didn't have any legs, that they appeared to be, these kind of almost ghost-like figures, as if they were morphing into one state of being into another. But people dismissed this because it didn't make any sense, 30 some years ago. But it now makes sense to us now because it looks like, even at your experiences that you've had, it looks like they have a way to remain hidden, to camouflage themselves, or in order to melt into one world and appear in another world.
Well, it's funny because when I saw the pixelation and then heard the roar of the Bigfoot, it was easy for me to put two and two together. Because that's exactly what a lot of First Nations in my area had said. And when I questioned Thomas Seawood about that, who was absolutely against the woo-woo factor, once again to quote him, I said, am I crazy? I said, because this is what I saw.
That's right. That's right.
And he all of a sudden they're left stumbling and bumbling, saying, well, maybe you saw this. No, I didn't. I saw it the way I saw it. And to be honest with you, I'm getting a little pissed off, Ron, that these people who don't know my story, they don't know me personally, are trying to tell me what I saw just because they don't want to believe what I saw.
That's right. It doesn't make any sense to them. It doesn't make any sense to them. That's right.
No, exactly. And I think maybe what we need to do is hold them accountable a little bit more, saying you're spending thousands of dollars on equipment, on treks into the forest and boats up the inlets of British Columbia and Alaska and Washington. Where's your proof? Why don't you have anything?
That's exactly right.
Because obviously, sorry to cut you off there, but obviously their way isn't working.
That's why I said they've had 50 years of looking at it from a terrestrial approach. It's not working. We do not have the evidence. We do not have the body. We do not have the DNA. We have tracks that go on for miles then simply disappear. How do you explain that? How do you explain when the experiencer sees something? Now, while we have a little bit of time here before break, I want to bring up this rather intriguing element from a person here in Western Pennsylvania that I had interviewed. I may have mentioned this one time on the program, I'm not sure, but it's an interesting story and worth repeating. There was a lady that came up to me one conference, and she said that she had to tell me about her experience with Bigfoot. I said, this is great. And I assumed that it was going to be something that took place out in the woods. Indeed, it did not. Her experience with Bigfoot was seeing it manifest itself within her apartment. At first, she was completely and utterly stunned, seeing a 7-foot tall, hairy, bipedal creature materializing itself in the living room. But what she said is it emitted some sort of aura that it was not going to harm her. And not only did it emit an aura to say that there was nothing any harm was going to befall her, it also telepathically communicated with her that he was simply there to observe. And it would watch her do the dishes. It would watch her vacuum the living room. It would go down in the basement and watch her fold clothes. And this went on for several weeks, and then as soon as as oddly as it appeared to her, it just vanished and never came back again. So what are we supposed to make with this story? I mean, this was something that looked to her as a Bigfoot, and then she had this cute little term for it when she called it her laundry ape, which I kind of like that. But she almost had a pet name for it because it was visiting her so much. So are we going to say that this person had some sort of mental illness, or was she actually coming and to tell me about this, significant thing that happened to her in her life? And after researching the case and talking to her more and more, it seems like she had a metaphysical visitation from another dimension, another world, another realm, whatever you want to call it, of a creature that resembled a Bigfoot. So these are the kind of things that we're hearing now. But I'm of the opinion that we've been hearing about these things for such a long period of time, but it's never reached our ears because the person taking the report simply throws it away and takes it as nothing more than, a hoax.
Couple questions for you, Guru. This one coming from Mario, question number 1 of the night. Ron, do you know anyone that may have hair or DNA from a Yeti or Sasquatch?
Personally, I know a lot of people that have them. There was a conference that we did here last year, the Kecksburg UFO conference, as a matter of fact, to be appropriate with the show, the UFO Bigfoot connection. And somebody said that they did have a hair of a suspected Sasquatch. However, to test these hairs, there was one university that wanted to test them for $1,500, and that's a pretty base rate. It can go up as high as $5,000, and nobody has that kind of money. It would be great if there was one institution out there that would say that they would test these hairs to find out what's going on and have a database for all these kind of hairs, because I don't think it's very it's very costly to do the testing. It's, a little bit of manpower and everything, but you're not putting a lot of money into the equipment. The equipment's already there. It just has to spin around for a little bit and you have to do some sequencing. But that's really the big drawback. People do have this evidence. I'm convinced that people have the evidence out there, but they can't afford it, or they're laughed at, or, what could even be worse and even more conspiratorial is that the evidence out there is just simply being suppressed.
Edie Kaito in Indiana, who's been on this show, she actually has a rare set of teeth marks.
On her body?
No, on a juice container that she left for them. And when she measured them, apparently there was a Bigfoot team in the Mount St. Helens area of Washington, which they call Ape Canyon, who found teeth marks on some bones that looked a little odd as well. And when they measured each of the teeth marks from Edie's and from theirs, they were almost identical, which matched no creature's mouth, the way the teeth and the incisors and the canines are, matched no other creature here in North America.
And so let me ask you, what happened with that evidence?
Well, of course it's gone nowhere.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep. And that is the sad thing. In Western Pennsylvania, there's reports all the time of black mountain lions, melanistic mountain lions, and that doesn't seem too far-fetched. Pennsylvania at one time had mountain lions. Actually, up until the turn of the 20th century, we still had a population of mountain lions in Pennsylvania. Now, what is going on is people reporting seeing black panthers around here. Some people actually report seeing black mountain lions, and this has never been verified in the natural science that there has been ever a case of a melanistic mountain lion. But the Game Commission will do nothing about researching this because they think that it's an impossibility. Whenever people think that it's an impossibility, all the research in academia stops right then and there. So all these people that say that they have this stuff, nobody's doing anything with it because they think that they already know everything that there is to know about, the categories of animals out there. And we're talking about a black panther. Now, talk about now trying to prove the existence of a Bigfoot and how game commissions would respond to that, or how scholars would respond to that. They're going to just simply shrug it off and laugh about it.
One of our newer listeners, who goes by Wally, he's from Michigan, and he would like to know if you have heard of any sightings in the Michigan area of Bigfoot.
Oh, sure. You know what? Michigan, especially the Upper Peninsula, I will be at the the Upper Peninsula, I believe it's called the Paracon. And this is sometime in August. But yeah, there's a lot of very good conferences in Michigan. So if the person asking the question is actually from that area, I would urge him to go to any of these conferences and talk to some of the researchers. But the Upper Peninsula area definitely has had a lot of Bigfoot reports. Not only that, but it also has a lot of UFO sightings up in that area, as well as dogman sightings. So there's definitely something going on in Michigan.
Eric was wondering about one of those sightings in Michigan, and that was the Priest Lake occurrences in the southwestern part of the states. Have you ever heard of those?
You know what? I'm thinking about this right now. The Priest Lake, if I'm not mistaken, had to do with the trackway. He's going to have to fill us in on the details, however, because I don't have a working knowledge of this.
Yeah, we'll have to get to that one later. I'll get Eric to fill us in on that. Let's get to another question from our audience here. This one comes from Corey. She says, if they are spiritual / extraterrestrial, is there any sense to going out looking and tracking them? Because it's almost like if they want to see you, they would come to you.
And I think there is a good point in that saying. As a researcher, I never understood why we always like to go out at night. I personally go out during the day far more often than I go out at night. People like to go out in the night because there's an ambience to it. But that's about it. I mean, if this is a nocturnal animal, you might be able to the chances might be greatly increased if you go out there at night. But people see this thing in the daytime all the time. And if it is terrestrial, and if it is, part of our ecosystem, then it's going to move around all the time, whether it's, diurnal or nocturnal. So the point of going out at night makes no sense to me. But I love the idea of this being a spiritual animal, and it will come to you and it will reveal itself to you on its own terms. Now, there are some people that go out into the woods and simply sit there meditating and hoping that the meditation would somehow draw in this figure. And it apparently has worked on several occasions. There are some people that go out there and burn certain incenses like sage to kind of honor the Native American tradition, and hoping that these sweet scents that were used in indigenous populations of their ceremonies would somehow lure the creature in as well. Some people play flutes and any kind of soothing sounds. But I think that we could have a new breed of researchers out there that approaches from a very new age perspective, although I really don't like that term very well, but that would approach this from a holistic perspective, let us say, and go out there and try to make contact with what we call Bigfoot on many different levels, rather than just going out there and banging a stick up against a tree and doing hoops and howls.
Yes, that's kind of a piss off for me as well. Let's burn through a couple more questions here. We got about 5.5 minutes before we got to go to break. Oh, and by the way, Eric Markham says it's like the Dewey Lake Monster. So let's. That's when we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting point, because I do want to. We have had reports in my part of the world here in Western Pennsylvania of Bigfoots being seen not only in the water as if they were swimming, but there have even been fishermen reporting seeing these creatures swimming underneath their boats as if there was an aquatic aspect to these creatures as well. Which is interesting, because that's a good way of hiding tracks. That's a good way of going from place to place and not being seen. I'm not saying these things are amphibious, but I mean, they might be capable of swimming, like a lot of different type of creatures are able to go from the land into the water with a good amount of ease. But that's a good point, because even in Lake Erie, there have been reports of Bigfoots up in that area as well too. So we should look at the idea of Bigfoot's connection with water. And that's also has a spiritual aspect of it as well. For millennia, water has been associated with the other world. That there's one way. That's one way of making contact with the other world through the flat surface of water.
Seth wants to know if anyone you know has had any success using thermal imaging trying to find Bigfoot.
Yeah, I spoke with some researchers down in Florida, and they do maintain that they have had a Bigfoot on thermal imagery that you could actually see its fingers separated as it moved. I did get a chance to see this thermal image. It is pretty impressive, but also the idea of being able to hoax a thermal image is a lot better than hoaxing a photograph, because you just have to throw out a certain heat scheme in order to do such a thing. But people are reporting seeing Bigfoot on thermals. But of course, like I said before, you have to take that as a way of, this is new technology, and with what people can do nowadays, you have to look at this, with a very skeptical eye whenever you're presented with this kind of evidence.
2.5 minutes left. I want to get to Joyce's question. She is asking, assuming there is an ET type and those living on Earth, are the two kinds of Bigfoot that people witness, could one be in progress with special adjustments being done on the ET type to release on Earth, or vice versa?
Absolutely, like almost as like a trial run that they're testing out the newest model. That's very possible. But what I think we should do whenever we come back is, for just a moment, let's talk about ETs possibly not being extraterrestrial. We'll talk about the idea of them being ultra-terrestrial, which means that they are part of our world, but they simply are from another dimension. I think that's a very interesting point to pursue, because that kind of changes the perspective on how we look at not only Bigfoot, but how we look at our idea and our conception of extraterrestrials.
Oh, now you're going to get me going. Because you know me, I like me some aliens.
I know you do, and this will be good. We don't get to talk about this too much, Dave. But tonight we can actually talk about this.
Well, the funny part about it is, as you say that, I'm still staring out my window to see if there's anybody there.
That's right.
There's not anybody there. I'm pissed off about that. Not anybody there. Classless. Just classless. But what do you do?
That's right.
I mean,
you just move on and hope for the best.
They're standing me up, my friend. I don't like to be stood up. I don't like to be stood up. I want to make sure that, damn it, if I want an alien at the window, at least, give me some goods here.
That's right. But, there's a lot of similarities between Bigfoot and aliens. Bigfoot have been known to abduct people. Aliens have been known to abduct people. And there's just a lot of tantalizing evidence that these Bigfoot and aliens might be creatures of another dimension. And they might not be coming light years away, but just simply might be right next door, right beyond this veil that I call the Goblin Universe.
Oh, yes, your old Goblin Universe theory. Here it comes.
That's right.
Here it comes, right through the beard. Right through the beard, here it comes. No, that's all good. We're gonna get to that and a lot more here in hour number 2. I can't believe hour number 1 is over already, man. It just seems like we just started a couple of minutes ago. But that's how it is around these parts when the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, comes around for his monthly segment that we call the Crypto Guru. Happens the second Wednesday of every month. Ron's next appearance on this show will be, coincidentally, on March 8th, 1 month from today.
Yeah, that's right.
We look forward to it. We'll be right back after this quick break, right here on the mighty SOR.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, live channeler Barry Strom is going to be with us. We're going to channel Moo. We're going to see what's going on in Barry's world regarding some extraterrestrial contact, some predictions about what's gone on in history. We're going to see what we can learn from the other side. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at the mighty SOR, spacedoutradio.com. Check us out tomorrow night as well, because we'll be here. We want you here as well. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are and whatever timeline you're on. We are live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. Yes, we are the nighttime show of Sin City. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Anathematize. Anathematize is your password. Once again, he just takes a bunch of Scrabble letters, throws them together just to see what he could score out, and that is your SOR Space Travelers password for the night. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show. And yes, it's me and me only. No one else is around Uncle Jimbo's cabin. It's kind of quiet in here tonight, and nobody's pushing on my chair, which is good. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Head to our website where we have a plethora of features for you at spacedoutradio.com. Including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, cheaper than a Starbucks coffee. So make sure you sign up before the end of the month when we do our next prize draw. Ronald Murphy, otherwise known around these parts as the Crypto Guru, is with us. We are going to be talking the correlation between Sasquatch and UFOs. Guru, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back here for the middle hour of our 3-hour adventure into the world of the strange and unusual.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to it every single month. Before we get to the topic at hand, I want to burn through a few questions from our audience, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Loretta would like to know, do you feel that gnomes and fairies are from the same realm, and do they interact with each other?
I do feel that way. Actually, my book that I wrote 2 years ago, The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge, which was based here in Western Pennsylvania. The book was focusing on a particular area of Western Pennsylvania. But I made the connection in that book that what we call Bigfoot is actually a being from the fairy realm itself. So that's really what kind of put me on the map of how I look at Bigfoot. That Bigfoot is of this realm, this metaphysical realm, where things that we call fairies and gnomes and even ghosts and possibly even, what we perceive as extraterrestrials all come from this other dimension that we simply, can't, comprehend quite yet. But yes, I do think that they are one and the same substance and they do interact with each other.
Gail would like to know, the female Bigfoot in the Pattinson-Gimlin film has been cited as verification that she is real because she has breasts. Has anyone else noticed her breasts are way too low on her body? They are positioned just above her navel, which would be, well, it's not like they're saggy, and, us as men, we don't like that anyways, but they're just in an odd place. Have you ever taken a closer look at Sasquatch's boobs?
Well, actually, Dave, every night I study the Sasquatch boobs for at least an hour or two. And what I have found out that, this is a hunched over animal, and it appears that she may have had, 1 or 2 children in her life. And the boobs are what we like to call in the field of cryptozoology pendulous. But my wife, who has had 5 kids, also has what I would call pendulous boobs. And I think that it's just the wear and tear on the body of childbirth. But there's a flip side of this as well. A couple of researchers have said that what we see there is not exactly boobs, that these might be closer aligned to what we see on a great ape like the orangutan. And it's these bags that would fill up with air in order to produce, the howls that they make. So that's one interesting type of conclusion drawn from looking at the Patterson-Gimlin film. But I think if I'm going to put my money where my money's worth, I see those as boobs.
You know what? So do I. And, it's funny because at the local post office here, they have a bunch of books made in British Columbia, because that's what we do in our post office. We try and sell, or they try and sell Canadian-made written books or toys or, something along those lines. And I came across this Sasquatch book, and the lady at the post office actually saw me looking at that. And she goes, "You believe in Sasquatch?" I said, "Yes, I do." And she goes, "I don't believe in them. I just don't think they're real." I said, "Well, I've seen two." She goes, "Really?" She goes, "Well, that sounds interesting." And I said, "I'm going to show you in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, why Sasquatch is real." And I showed her, one of the books actually had the famous picture of the Patterson-Gimlin film with the Sasquatch, the arms stretched out as it's walking, looking towards the film. And I said, "Okay, ma'am, if this is a fake, like you think it is, that it's someone who is in a costume, in 1967, or whenever that film was filmed, I believe it was 67.
It was.
And I said, explain to me one thing. And she goes, "What's that?" I said, if you're sewing a costume of an ape walking through the forest, are you going to sew breasts on it? And she goes, "Of course not." So then I put the book down on the counter and I pointed to the breasts on the picture and I said, "What are those?" And she went, "Oh my God." She goes, I've looked at that picture hundreds of times and I've never noticed the breasts on that creature. She goes, "No one would ever sew breasts on there. You wouldn't think about it." And especially during that time where, the humor wasn't as sadistic as it is today. Nobody would do that.
That's right. That's right. So even if this was some sort of Hollywood stunt to try to put one over on the media, the idea of putting now that's the other thing too. Because this thing has what appears to be breasts, there was also the idea and the notion that this thing could also be censored as well. So if these people were indeed faking something, why would they want to put something that might be censored on, like news programs? It doesn't make any sense to me at all why you would do something like that. Now, some people have speculated that the person that put together this Bigfoot outfit was the same person that did the makeup on the Planet of the Apes movies. Well, if that is the case, if you would look at all the apes on there, none of the costumes have breasts, attached to it. So what really leads me to believe that Patterson and Gimlin caught something worthwhile on that film is because it does not look like it's fabricated. This is not what a Bigfoot should look like. Whenever we think about that, we would think of something very masculine. But no, this has a different type of feel to it. Now, that's the other thing, too, I would like to make a point about. We talk about things being blurry on video and such, but the Patterson-Gimlin tape, or the film, was actually on film. So maybe that does have something to say as well, too, that if these creatures are from another dimension, is it possible that they're putting out a different frequency, that our eyes can see them fine, and maybe even film by the rate that it goes can pick it up fine, but maybe our newer digital type of equipment doesn't pick it up because the frequency they're emitting is different than the spectrum used in order to record that type of motion.
I agree with you on that. I really do agree with you on that.
Yeah, if you would think, I've been around, I've done several movies, and everybody nowadays uses digital because it's so easy to take, the stick out of it and just transfer it and everything, and it makes editing a lot easier. However, if you would look at films like Star Wars that still uses film, That's because the film rate is so quick, you can pick up things that digital cannot pick up. Actually, the Peter Jackson filmed the movie The Hobbit in such a high rate of film that it was making people rather queasy because every action was picked up so definitively on that. So that's something we should consider as well, too. Nobody uses film anymore. And it seems like whenever film came out, that's when we started getting more blob squatches than anything, whenever the digital came out.
Why do you think it is that Sasquatch photos or videos always seem to be blurry?
And that is my thing, especially whenever I look at the idea of the fairy. A lot of researchers have suggested, and I'm going back, maybe 100 years now, that some researchers have suggested that what we perceive as wings on fairies, when we think of fairies of having little wings, that these might not actually be wings, but an energy projection from the creature that we are only visualizing and putting together in our mind, that these are wings when actually it's just an energy. That's a very intriguing thing to me, and I think that's really what's going on, is our mind is putting these things together so we can make sense of what's happening.
Well, let's move to the connection of Sasquatch and UFOs. What led you down this path?
Listening to people. Listening to people like you, and looking back over the data, going back, 40 some years. In 1973, we had something happen in Western Pennsylvania that was so profound that a local ufologist and cryptozoological researcher by the name of Stan Gordon, he wrote a book called The Silent Invasion, the Pennsylvania UFO Bigfoot Casebook, because there was so many sightings of UFOs and so many sightings of Bigfoot, and sometimes at the same time, that it didn't make any sense. What had preceded it, had preceded it, had never been seen to this degree before. People were witnessing creatures walking through a field with a UFO hovering overhead, and the creatures were holding in their hands some sort of glowing object, almost as if the object that they held was somehow communicating with the UFO that was there, so some sort of tracking device or what have you. But if we go back even into the 1600s, over in Great Britain, over in Aberfoyle, Scotland, there was a person by the name of Kirk, who he was a reverend, and he talked about going into a fairy mound and seeing very large creatures inside the fairy mound. So if we would look at the mythologies around the world and reports around the world, this might have been going on for the past several thousand years.
I understand that, and I can appreciate that. But for a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping around why any UFO connection with Sasquatch would even be plausible.
It would be plausible if they both come from the same dimension, and we are a technologically advanced society, and we have been for a while. Ever since, the TV came out and it was black and white, and, the Outer Limits came on, we start seeing things that are supernatural from a technological point of view. So if we would see something that our ancestors would call fairy lights, we now would see it as UFOs, because that's what we are, brought up on nowadays. We're technology. But maybe technology doesn't make the most sense. If Bigfoot and what we call extraterrestrials are from the same dimension, is it possible that we are simply putting together the details in our mind because we are, like I said, a technologically advanced society, so we assume that they have to be as well. So the glowing orb in the Bigfoot hand now becomes a honing device rather than what they would have called a will-o'-the-wisp or a fairy light at one time. See, this stuff is all the kind of research that I'm starting to work out now and trying to put it into some sort of paradigm and some sort of framework to find out what might be going on. But, if we would go back into the Middle Ages or even farther back, I mean, even Alexander the Great reported, a sighting of a UFO, as well as Christopher Columbus, 1,500 years after the death of Alexander the Great. But something has been going on. It's been reported throughout history, and now it's a time to start making a link, because as we've said at the outset of this program, that the old ways simply aren't making any sense and not drawing any kind of reliable conclusions.
Canadian Joe has a question here at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, asking, maybe Bigfoot is some sort of genetic hybrid created by the extraterrestrials. What do you think?
Yep, people have brought that up as well too. The whole slave theory that these creatures are programmed to act on behalf of the UFO intelligences, or possibly even their scouting. For a possible, landing that is to take place. I mean, these things have all been conjectured before. But again, as far as I'm concerned, the jury is still out that they are actually brought here by another race. I said about talking about ultra-terrestrials. Now, that's a word that's been used since at least the idea of John Keel that wrote the Mothman prophecies, that the idea that these are ultra-terrestrials, something that is beyond our physical world. So instead of having an extraterrestrial traveling billions of light years, which, unless they're going at an advanced speed over the speed of light, but even at that, even traveling at the speed of light, it's going to take them generations to get to this planet, to simply, land in a back country road to abduct somebody to get DNA. Doesn't make any sense. What does make sense is that there is another dimension, and these things are able to seep from one dimension into our dimension, and they've been doing this, forever. And we used to see them as fairies, or we used to see them as angels, or we used to see them as, what have you, whatever archetypal character comes to mind. But now we see them as UFOs because the media has told us that, and everything is computers and everything is electronics now. So of course we're going to think that these things are advanced. And not just simply fairies or any other kind of superstitious type of thing that we can easily shrug off.
I like Dennis's question at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. And he says it's a stupid question, but, I think that's the Canadian in him saying that. But he's saying, do you think Bigfoot might be extraterrestrial pets?
Oh, you know what? I've heard that, and that's not actually a stupid question at all. That to think that a culture, look, compared to us, that if we go exploring different places, we always bring back things with us. At one time, the Tower of London had a polar bear chained outside that was allowed to take swims in the Thames River because they showed, it was actually a gift from Norway, I think. But culture has a tendency to take things that we have conquered to kind of show it off. So is it possible there's a Bigfoot planet out there that these extraterrestrials had visited and, they liked what they saw and took one home? Well, sure, it's possible. But then are they letting their pet out then to take a walk around and, take a leak or whatever and do its business, on the front lawn of the earth? What's going on with that? But no, that's definitely not a stupid question. And if you look at colonialism through the eyes of the human, then we have done similar things throughout our history as well.
We could get very, very technical with this subject because there's also the group out there who believes that Bigfoot actually came from another planet and destroyed it and somehow made their way to Earth. That we're getting real sci-fi here. I'm not sure if I believe this. I believe the planet was called Maldek or something along those lines. and came to Earth because their own planet was dying or dead or something along those lines. Have you ever heard that theory that they just couldn't find another home, so that's how they ended up here?
So I've never heard of that theory before. No. So are they saying that the Bigfoot creature is the beings that put together the UFOs and came here? Is that what the theory is contending?
The theory is that on their planet Maldek, and I'm pretty strong on that one, that basically what happened was they had a fallout, okay? Maybe a war fallout, or just their planet was about to explode and burst, or just a dying planet, and they had to get off the planet, and they spread around all different types of planets in the universe, and part of their culture showed up here.
Wow, that's interesting. But then it would seem like there was a de-evolution that occurred once they were on this planet, and now they seem to not only lack clothes, and clothes isn't necessarily a function of intelligence, but they also don't seem to have any use of fire or any kind of advanced culture. So I wonder what happened in that regard. I wonder how that theory picks up under that notion. But I'll tell you what, if there is a Bigfoot planet, I think Maldek is a great name for it.
I don't know how much I buy into that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when we talk about getting strange, I think that's where we start losing people in the reality of the topic. I mean, that's just my opinion, not scientific fact. Dave's opinion. I do want to profess that. Anyways, but I think there is something to the extraterrestrial connection. I know Miriam Delicato, who I have talked to numerous times on this show, but more so off the air, has believed when she had sightings and experiences that she has seen Sasquatch in the spaceship as well. I heard a story early on in Spaced Out Radio's history where I had a Bigfoot researcher on who reported a story out of the U.S. I apologize, I forget the state, where a few men were fishing, or they were camping for the night because they were fishing on a lake, and they were sitting around the fire and they heard the noises happening in the trees, and then all of a sudden they heard these giant footprints or feet sound just start running as fast as they could through the bushes. And the next thing they knew, there was UFOs over the sky that were dropping light beams down from their ships, almost like they were looking for where the Bigfoot were hiding.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. But yes, I've heard people talk about that before. Abductees talking about going into a room, and besides seeing the grays, the typical aliens, they also saw, hairy bipedal man-like creatures as well. I've heard that before. And I have heard people witnessing UFOs flying at a very low distance, sometimes even brushing the treetops, and through the portals you can see, or through the windows you can see a Bigfoot creature in there as well. These are fascinating. Like I said, to use the buzzword of the show, you don't want to you don't want to put anybody down. You don't want to anthemize anybody. You want to give them the credit that's due to it. But again, sometimes this stuff is so outlandish that it doesn't make any sense logically, nor does it make any kind of sense scientifically. And it seems like people are just making up theories to go. I don't think that if there's a Bigfoot out there that is indeed from another planet, you don't have to make up a story like a Maldek exploding and things. That to me doesn't make any sense. But what makes more sense is what the one gentleman said about, this is something that was brought back from another planet by UFOs, and somehow it escaped. I've heard that theory before. But whatever's going on is probably not sci-fi oriented or so fantasy oriented. There's probably a much easier explanation for the Bigfoot UFO connection than having to try to make up stories that would be playing very well on the Sci-Fi Network.
I have to laugh here because on Twitter at #SpaceOutRadio, one of our followers It goes by a whole skeptic. Well, play on words there. He puts this picture up of this cute little baby Bigfoot with pigtails, nail polish, wearing this pink and white bib with a little rabbit on it. He's asking, do Bigfoot have daycare centers? So if you're on Twitter, go to hashtag #SpaceOutRadio and check this out. Oh, this just has me laughing right now. It does.
Well, interestingly, there has been one report of a Bigfoot seen nursing its young, and rarely you'll get reports of a Bigfoot mother. Obviously, the mother, or that's what was thought of bathing a young one in a river. I've heard that report as well. So occasionally you do see family units out there. But if we go back to, I believe it was 1926, with Albert Ostman, who claimed that he was abducted by Bigfoot up in the Pacific Northwest. He was unceremoniously dropped into this setting out of his sleeping bag, and there was an alpha male and an alpha female and other little ones around. So it seems that they do live in family groups, and it's not beyond the realm of imagination that to think that there might be one female that does indeed take care of the young. That's a common factor in a lot of different animal species around the world. So it's very possible that does happen.
Mm-hmm. I do have a question from Eric in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He is asking, maybe coming to Earth and living in the woods is some sort of form of punishment. What do you think?
See, again, it has hair. It seems to be adapted to the woods. So even if it comes from another dimension, it seems to have this relation with the woods. It appears the way it does for a reason, survival reason. So again, I would say that I don't see it as a punishment, but if we would look at First Nations understand, a lot of people went in the woods not so much for a punishment, but for a vision quest. So it's very possible that they're coming to Earth or coming to our dimension for some sort of spiritual reasons, rather than to take it over or for punishment.
I'm wondering if this is an occurrence that happens a lot. I'm wondering if this is something that they are using them for genetic testing, much like they do humans or what we've seen with cows.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, what a Bigfoot might be, if we are going to accept that there's extraterrestrials from another planet, and they are coming here to do research on human DNA, it's very possible that what we're seeing is the genetic experiment of a human and possibly another animal from Earth, or possibly an extraterrestrial animal as well. And this is kind of spliced together. They're still trying to work out the kinks. I mean, that's extremely possible.
Couple questions from our audience. Joyce is asking, Ron, do you think some people have confused the images they've seen with real-life memories, and some can be quite disturbing and traumatic for some? And this is in regards to the abductions.
Oh, sure. I mean, I worked in human services for, well over a decade, and you would have people coming in, with what people would call suppressed memories, and it usually has the form of some sort of abuse. But what conclusion I came to, as somebody that was in these clinical settings, is it possible that some of these memories that they have is not from an actual physical abuse by a human, but a half-remembered incident that involved an alien abduction? Very, very plausible.
I'm going to get to Gail's question here momentarily, but I'm wondering your thoughts on the new television show Killing Bigfoot.
Oh my goodness! I saw the first episode. They did a pilot episode. I believe it was last year. Might have even been the year before last. But the actual, honest to goodness, first one was on just a couple of days ago. The Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. And you have to keep in mind, several years ago, this was an organization that was on par with the BFRO, the Finding Bigfoot group, but they took a wrong turn. I think they did it almost in a publish or perish type of analogy, that they had to get out there. They wanted their time to shine in the spotlight, so they wanted to be outlandish to assure themselves to get on TV, some TV time. So what they propose now is they're going to take high-powered rifles and shotguns and machine guns out into the woods solely to kill a Bigfoot to prove that it exists. And like all the other shows out there, from Mountain Monsters to Finding Bigfoot, they go out invariably at night, and there's some good old boys on there. And what they do is they stalk and they shoot at shadows. So we watch 42 minutes of these guys in camouflage going out in the woods at night and just start shooting at what they say is Bigfoot moving around. I think it's a poor excuse for television. This is tabloid television at its finest. And it's just, this does nothing to help with our research. This has nothing. There's no help at all to show, shine a light of favorability on the cryptozoological or the paranormal world. This actually hurts us more than anything, because now when we go to conferences, we're going to be caricaturized as these type of people, and that's not how it goes. There was a Hanobi Bigfoot conference that they attended in Oklahoma to talk to the people that were in attendance there about their plan on shooting Bigfoot. And my friend Rod Moorhead actually spoke at that particular conference, and he said that they were booed out of the conference hall. And I'm glad to hear that, because if a Bigfoot does exist, the last thing that you would want to do is kill it. This might be a holoform. This might be the last of its kind, and we kill it, and we do have nothing but the first collected evidence of this creature, and that would be very, very sad. But the idea of going out there and killing anything to prove that it exists is something so 19th century British colonial to me that it actually, it's like a kick to the stomach. It makes no sense to me.
Well, it's funny. A few weeks ago, I actually had one of the producers from that show message me on Facebook. And he goes, "I'm not sure if you've heard of our show or not. I'm with the production of Killing Bigfoot." And I said, "Please don't take offense to this." I said, "But you're not going to kill it. You're not going to find it." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, think about it." I said, "People have been hunting it for years. They carry their guns." And I said, "Bigfoot knows. It smells gunpowder for a while, or a long ways. You're not going to be able to get it." And let's also face it, off topic, of that conversation I had with the man. But off topic, let's face it, if it's on TV, they're not going to find the damn thing.
That's right. The program ends right there as soon as they find it or photograph it or anything like that. The idea of these people being on TV is so they'll be renewed for a few seasons, and that's how they make their money. So, of course, they're not going to shoot anything. So why do you think that they approached you? Do you think they were going to put a gun in your hand and you would be going out there trying to kill one?
Well, it reminds me of the story that happened last year, where scientist Christopher Filardi of the American Museum of Natural History was down in Guatemala looking for a very special kingfisher bird called the mustache kingfisher that had been elusive. They didn't know that they even existed, at least the males. So he caught one in a net and immediately broke its neck, saying he was doing it for the betterment of the species and study. And here I'm thinking, do we really, is it that important for science to have the dead body of a bird that might be near extinction, or any animal that might be near extinction, or that we don't know about?
Yeah, I remember vividly whenever this happened. And you and I actually talked about this on the program whenever it was the hot topic. And I remember saying, and you know, we were talking about just taking a blood specimen would provide the DNA, or taking feather specimens. And, you know, you think all this high quality up close digital photography of this bird rather than killing it. That's something like Audubon would do. You know, that's something that before the idea of taking a photograph or collecting chemical specimens, people would kill the thing to prove that it exists. But we have to, as a human race, have to think that we've evolved further than just simply killing something so we can stuff it and say, look what I saw.
This leads to Gail's question then. She says Sasquatch seems non-aggressive and simply wish to be left alone. How can shows like Killing Bigfoot be stopped? If they wanted us bothering them, wouldn't they have made an effort to interact with us?
Well, sure. There are reports of First Nations peoples having ongoing wars with these creatures. You know, the people are using bows and arrows, and the Bigfoot are using stones and sticks. So there are tantalizing hints that warfare between the species did exist at one time. But for whatever is going on now, there seems to be an uneasy truce between the Bigfoot and the human, if indeed they did wage war against each other at one time. So I'm a pacifist by heart, so I would hate to stir up the cauldron. If you want these programs to cease, simply don't watch them. If enough people don't watch them, then nobody's going to pay any TV time, because nobody's going to be able to sell any commercials, because nobody's watching that crap. And that's the thing. I mean, these people who put together these shows, this is all very calculated. It is scripted. They know where they're going. They know what they're going to be doing. This is not research. It's not like watching National Geographic. This is people that are on TV just simply to make money. And I just say stop watching it. I don't watch the crap anymore. But if you stop watching it, enough people stop watching it, it will be gone.
Question from Everett. He's saying, what are your thoughts on the contradiction between the theory that aliens would be smaller bodied with a larger head because they are an advanced race versus a more primitive looking Sasquatch, smaller head, giant body?
Right. The problem that I have with creatures like the Bigfoot or even the Greys being extraterrestrial is because they look so recognizable. They have the two eyes in the front of the head. They have, semblance of a nostril, two arms, two legs. It looks like something that evolved on Earth. If these creatures are from, billions of miles away, the planet would have been very, very different. But if there was some sort of convergent evolution going on there that somehow mirrored our Earth, the idea of these extraterrestrials looking very similar to us still doesn't really fit into my schema of how science works. They look too close to and too analogous to what we have here on Earth to say that they are from another planet. That's why the idea of them being from another dimension makes much more sense to me than to think that they're from another planet.
Let's get to a question from Bob. He says, everyone assumes Bigfoot could be from another planet. How about from inner Earth? I have heard that Bigfoot is thought to travel through tunnels and lava tubes.
Yes, I just finished a book called On Vampires, and there was an interesting a topic, as my research found out, that in Greece there was believed that these vampiric type creatures lived underground, and they were able to use these underground tunnels. And there was one underground tunnel that actually it went across the entire breadth of the Atlantic Ocean. And the idea of something living within the center of the earth goes back far beyond Jules Verne. That there was a civilization in there. Now, a lot of people are saying that there's an opening at either end of the Earth's poles, in the North Pole, the South Pole, and this is where things come and go. Edgar Rice Burroughs has that kind of idea as well, but it's not a new notion by any stretch of the imagination. And could it be that what we see as Bigfoot and what we see as UFOs are coming right from within our Earth? Yes, it's very possible. There's an idea of advanced civilizations. Whatever they destroyed were not completely wiped out, but had a stronghold, around Antarctica or around the North Pole. And as the climates gradually changed, they then went underground, because it was easier for them to survive. These are great ideas, and this is not in the realm of science fiction, because people have thought about this for some number of years. And there are people that have seen what appear to be flying discs in that part of the world as well, too, around the poles. So what are we supposed to do with that? I say we keep an open mind and keep on investigating.
Question from Matt here. He's saying, we've seen alien autopsies on television. Who would actually believe a Bigfoot autopsy?
Oh, I don't know. Does he have a good idea? See, that's a good idea. Do you remember when the alien autopsy came out, and Cyril Wecht, who was a very critical guy on the Kennedy assassination, but he came on and said he did not know what he's looking at. This seems to be an extraterrestrial. So apparently Cyril Wecht would say almost anything if the cash was right. But National Geographic has had a dissection of a giant snake, of an alligator, and one time they even did something on a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Of course, it wasn't a real Tyrannosaurus Rex, but I mean, that'd be a fact. I would watch that if you wanted to make up some sort of body of a Bigfoot and dissect it. Heck yeah, I would watch it. That would make very interesting television.
Once again, we get to the point where nobody's going to believe it. I mean, you look at how, Ron, the alien autopsy report was, in video, was absolutely, ripped to shreds by not only fellow ufologists, but by everybody in the mainstream who wanted to give their say of an opinion of that video. I mean, it was crazy, Ron.
It was. Now let's compare that now, Dave, to the Patterson-Gimlin film. Do you see how different they look? It's like night and day. The alien autopsy film was overproduced. Everything looked too sharp in it. They got really close with the camera. Everything was pretty much in focus. They even used contemporary instruments to that particular time period. Even the clock on the wall was from the 1950s or 60s or whatever it was. But whenever we look at the Patterson-Gimlin film, it's very shaky. It looks very visceral. It's very real. The animal moves like an animal. So that's one of the reasons why I have so much credence towards something like the Patterson-Gimlin film and cast such derision to the alien autopsy, because you can tell with the alien autopsy, this was somebody that was trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
I get that. So when it comes to all of the sightings that people are having, or experiences with Bigfoot that people are having, are you taking these stories as credible? Because unfortunately in this case, there is no video evidence that could be scrutinized. There is no recordings of it happening. we're only going on brief eyewitness testimony, and we don't even know if they're able to tell the truth because we can't prove if it's in a dream state or if it's actually in reality.
That's right. And then we get to the idea of the manipulation, the possible manipulation of the human mind and how we perceive these things. And then that opens up a whole new can of worms. That this creature might be out there. It might be from a different dimension. But is it possible that it has a territorial mechanism or defensive mechanism where it can actually impact the way we think about it?
I fully get that. So when you have just, very loose eyewitness testimony like we do in this situation, how do we know what's real and what's 15 minutes of fame worth?
That's right. And that's what we have to keep an open mind. That's the reason we have to take everybody at face value. Pretty much whenever somebody is wanting to get fame out of it, because they'll ask when it's going to air, or how much money do you think I can get out of this, or do you want my name? Because a lot of people want to stay quiet about this. They want to remain anonymous. It's those people that are wanting to look for their 15 minutes of fame, and they make sure that they look right, like they're playing a part before you interview them. Those are the ones I always have problems with.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think extraterrestrials would be interested in when it comes to Sasquatch?
Well, if it is a genetic manipulation, it could be to see if the Bigfoot is capable of surviving on this planet, and maybe even surviving on the planet from when it came from. If we are using the combination of human DNA and alien DNA, this might be one of those experiments to find out if you could create something that would be able to live on, both planets, Earth and the other, conjectured planet, the speculated planet. Or it could be that they need our natural resources. A lot of people have claimed that as well, and that's why it's here. But again, I'm not of that particular camp. But just to speculate about it, those are some reasons why it would happen. If they are needing our genetic material in order to keep on going with this experiment they have in what we call Bigfoot, then it's going to have to continue to stay here and have a base here to make sure that it reaches its purpose. But that's the question. What exactly is the Bigfoot's purpose if it is designed by an extraterrestrial race?
Do you think the governments know about Bigfoot?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the Men in Black is one of those UFO type of stories that we've heard for a while. But a lot of listeners probably don't know that Men in Black also have been known to show up after Bigfoot sightings. And there was a Bigfoot that was reported around a junkyard. Like, it was one of these things where everybody kind of known that if you would go out there, you would be able to see something very strange. It was kind of like, where teenagers would go, and kind of like a legend tripping type of adventure. And they would go out there to see if they could capture this Bigfoot. But so many people have seen it there that there was, a folklore and urban legend that developed around it. But somebody had saw the creature there, and for lack of a better word, Men in Black showed up at the door, and they said that, you're going to forget about this. You're not going to report this. And they didn't give any kind of details. It was just kind of hushed up. But I do most sincerely think that the United States government knows that Bigfoot is out there. Even in the Army training manual from California, there was a passage in there about the possible encounters you might have of the indigenous California life. And one of the life forms that you could encounter, according to the Army manual, was Sasquatch. So that's in training their new recruits. So it's very, very suspicious that the Army would put something like a Bigfoot into an Army manual. So I do feel that they do know what's going on.
How did you find out that they have Bigfoot in the Army manual? I've never heard that before.
You know what? That came out. This was in the 80s, as a matter of fact. When we go on break, I will try to get you a link. But it was a pen sketch. No detail or anything like that. Almost kind of like a silhouetted type of thing of the possible local fauna that you would experience in that area, just to help. I believe it was like Army Ranger training or something like that. What kind of things you might come across? But yeah, it was one of those things where I remember seeing whenever I was quite young, and it kind of stuck to me. But like I said, whenever we go to break, I'm going to see if I can provide you with a link.
That would be cool to find out, because I got a couple of friends in the U.S. Army or served in the U.S. Army. I'd like to see if that was actually in there. Was it just for special forces or something along those lines?
You know what? I'm looking up right now. I'm going to see if I will be able to multitask here. Let's see here. Bigfoot. It was a 1974 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Let me see if I can get you this link here real quick.
Sure.
Let's see. BigfootResearchersNews.com. And this was dated Friday, July 12th, 2013. But it's from an Army training manual from the, let's see here. Let me see if I can get everything here. Let's see here. 1974, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers included Sasquatch as a species in the state of Washington. I'm sorry, I thought it was California. In the atlas, it describes Bigfoot as standing 8 to 12 feet tall, weighing up to 1,000 pounds, and having feet measuring up to 24 inches long. And there is actually a picture of it as well, too. So let me see if I can... Are you at that site, Dave, or do you want me to send it to you?
You know what? Send that to me, and I'll click on it during the break.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's like a little silhouetted type of Bigfoot here, so I will get that to you.
While we're doing that, because we're only about 4 minutes away from break here, I want to get to Dennis's question at #SpaceOutRadio. Do you believe the Boggy Creek monster, the Fook monster, could be considered a genetic mistake, considering it only had 3 toes?
You know what? In my book that I had written on wild men, tracking Bigfoot through history, I actually bring that up, that it's not so much a genetic mistake on the part of an intelligence trying to manipulate genes. I see it as a genetic mistake or a genetic anomaly due to lack of genetic diversity in that particular species. The swamp is a very unforgiving place, and if there is something like a Fouk monster around there, what we call the Boggy Creek monster, there wouldn't be very many of them. So that would led me to believe that any kind of genetic fault would be passed on, and one of those things might be in the 3-toe tracks instead of the typical 5-toe tracks. So I look at that as something that is could be scientifically proven, that there's just not enough genetic diversity going around, so any kind of mutated gene is going to be passed on from generation to generation.
Well, you know what? Maybe it's an inbreeding thing, too.
That's what I meant, exactly. And there's just not so not being able to mate with another Bigfoot outside of its clan, and it has to mate within its familial clan, and these kind of things can happen. I mean, it happens in analogies with human beings, so why not in Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm. I agree. We don't know. That's the issue. And I want to say thanks to Jeff at #SpaceOutRadio. He actually has sent me this PDF in regards to this this plan. that has it in there. So I'm gonna look that over. I'm also gonna send that over to Eric Cooper from Four Spoon Paranormal, because he spent 19 years in the Army. I don't even know if he knows about this.
Yeah, see that these are kind of cool things, and again, your listeners are by far the best in the world. But I mean, you mentioned one thing, and they're able to give you the proof of all that you need within seconds. So,
oh, for sure, we're very lucky that way.
That's
very,
right.
Very lucky, So that is kind of cool. I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention here, man.
Oh, sure. And like I said, I remember seeing this as a kid on some sort of program. I don't know exactly what program that it was, but it stuck with me all those years. So, yeah, I mean, this is going back pretty far back there, too.
Well, that's why we call you the crypto guru, man, is because you make stuff like this happen. You make stuff like this happen.
Well, I appreciate that. But these guys are the ones that are able to get it out there immediately, though. So these are my crypto minions.
And on that note, Ron, we're going to hop out for our break at the top of the hour. Hour number 2 in the books with the Crypto Guru. We're going hour number 3 right after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Always a pleasure to broadcast to you live. Tomorrow night on the show, we'll be joined by Barry Strom. He's been on a number of times, channeling Mu, the extraterrestrial, via his spirit board. We're going to see what Barry has in store for us tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to thank everyone listening in at Revolution Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. Yes, we are the nighttime radio show of Sin City. And of course, we have over 160 countries following us, listening in on the United Public Radio Network. We're also live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Good to have you along for the ride as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Anathematize. Anathematize is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, because Bill doesn't want you to get hurt while using it. Anathematize. No, I said that wrong. Anathematize. There we go. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You can also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect with me and our other listeners during the show. You can also check us out on Facebook. Give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Check out our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, for our archives. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 measly a month. Do it today. The Crypto Guru is back for one final hour. Yes, author Ronald Murphy. And as of this moment, you can find his books in any major bookstore around the world. I'm going to tell you, Ron, that's fun to say.
It is. Oh, I'm very, very pleased and beaming over this. Now, not this very second, not mind you. My On Vampires should be the first one released in the catalog, and that should be available around the world within the next month or so. But definitely by summertime, all the books will be available around the world in your bookstore.
Good. I look forward to going into a bookstore around here and seeing a book by the Crypto Guru. I really look forward to that. I do, man. That's going to be exciting, and I can't wait to text you a picture when I get it.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking forward to that. I truly am. And that's the cool thing about social media is that, and a lot of the spaced out listeners I am friends with. And I tell everybody, you know, feel free to friend me, you know, Ronald Murphy, just go to my page and give me a like or give me a friend request, because I truly like what people have to say. You know, even if you don't agree with everything I have to say, I love that kind of open conversation that we're allowed to have. And you have listeners from all over the world, so it's very fascinating to talk to these people about the paranormal phenomenon that's happening in their neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, these experiments and these sightings and experiences are happening everywhere. You know,
they are, that's right.
There isn't a place in North America where we aren't looking for Bigfoot.
That's very true. Very true indeed. That's right. Even finding Bigfoot, you know, the little program that's been on now for about 5 years, they even went to Hawaii. Now, Hawaii has never had a reported Bigfoot sighting per se, but they have the Menehune there, the little people, and they went there looking for that. So no matter what state you're in, there's something paranormal going on.
Always something about the paranormal. Sounds like your microphone there is rubbing against that thick beard.
I actually had a cough, and I had to cover it up because I didn't want everybody to think that I was instead of me reaching over and burning a calorie by pressing the mute button, I decided just to cover up my microphone. But it's all good.
My friend, we were talking about in the second hour the combination between UFO sightings and Sasquatch, and wondering whether or not UFOs were abducting Sasquatch. Do you think for a lot of people out there that this is just way too far into the realm of sci-fi and it's just unbelievable? Or do you think that this is actually happening?
No, I actually think that this is something out of sci-fi. I have no problem with thinking that there's a connection between what we call UFOs and Bigfoot. I have no problem with that connection. My problem comes whenever it involves, the genetic engineering, or it comes with the idea of their experiments. That's where my problem comes into being, is because we have seen, people have been reported seeing Bigfoot for so many years, whenever they were by themselves without the UFO around, that it leads me to believe that they are separate entities. But again, because I like to deal with things from the Goblin universe, that they're separate entities, but they have a crossover. There's a link between the two, because they necessarily come from a shared dimension that we call, for lack of a better word, this theoretical Goblin universe, where the things that go bump in the night live, and every now and then they kind of creep into our world.
Do you believe, though, that maybe a lot of this is just people's imaginations?
Well, some things. I mean, I think that, whenever they see lights in the sky, that's immediately thought of as a UFO, and that might be their imagination because it might be a plane. There's some pareidolia that goes along, but I mean, Bigfoot being somebody's imagination and UFOs, definitely not. There's something going on there.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to Bigfoot, then, do you believe that it is an earthly creature, or do you believe that it was dropped off here or something along those lines?
I believe that Bigfoot is a terrestrial creature. It's just not from our dimension. I believe that it, has Bigfoot babies. It lives in a world, right beyond our world. But every now and then it kind of visits our world, whether it's intentional or it steps through some sort of portal or what have you. I'm still working that out. But I do think that it is a terrestrial animal, but it's not from our world. So that's kind of complicated and kind of simplified both at the same time. But that's why we can get footprints, and that's why we can get scat samples, and that's why people have seen these things with young. That's because they are living, breathing animals. They just don't necessarily have to be part of our dimension.
That brings up another interesting point about dimension. A lot of people believe that Sasquatch is interdimensional, possibly a shapeshifter. If this is true, it would be very easy to understand why a UFO or an extraterrestrial would have interest in them.
Yes. Yeah. As in UFOs that are visiting planet Earth and they come across Homo sapiens plus this other bipedal ape-like creature, of course, yeah, that would be great. I mean, if UFOs are indeed scientific instruments with people on board or intelligence on board that are collecting data, a world that is populated by not only man but also Bigfoot will be a very interesting place to do some research. One species kills each other and the other one lives in apparently unbridled bliss out in the woods doing their Bigfoot thing. But yeah, I mean, and that's why I think a lot of people do want to make that kind of connection that, of all the places in the universe, our place is special. We have this diversity of life forms here, and to think that there's a Bigfoot existing right beyond the knowledge of the mainstream mankind, of beyond our culture, then that would be a fascinating thing to think of. And that would be a reason why extraterrestrials would study this place. I'm not necessarily buying it, but I can see why people would think that.
Let's change topics here for a little bit. Loretta is asking, do you think vampires walk among us? And is there a clandestine policing agency that handles this sort of thing?
Well, again, there are definitely vampires out there. Part of the research that I did for my book on vampires was investigate vampire communities, and there's plenty of them around here. You don't even have to go to New Orleans. I found one outside of Pittsburgh. But what happens is there's people that take on the persona of vampires mainly because of the media, or the Anne Rice books. But there are people, I mean, if you go to fetish websites or kink websites, you can find people that that call themselves hosts, and if you have the inkling to do so, you can contact these people and they would allow you to drink their blood. So there are, in that respect, definitely vampires out there. These aren't cryptids. These are people with a penchant for sadomasochism, and that's it. Now, if you're talking about actual, honest to goodness vampires that cannot go out in the sunlight and are repelled by crosses dresses and everything, that's pretty Hollywood right there. And what she's talking about as well is this clandestine type of police force to rid the streets from these night walkers, so to speak. That's the stuff of fantasy as well. The research that I've come up with, and the idea of the vampire goes back at least 11,000 years ago, if not more than that. But the idea of the vampire is part of a culture's way of personifying all the things that are evil in that culture, whether it be and unexplainable as well, whether it be evil spirits or some sort of illness or disease. For instance, you can find graves throughout New England that says the person that died in that grave was actually killed by a vampire. But as I've researched into it, this embrace of the vampire referred to consumption, tuberculosis, whatever the person was seemed to be fed upon night after night as they would slowly be consumed by the disease. That's why it's called consumption. So yeah, the idea of vampires existing out there in the Hollywood realm, extremely unlikely. That idea did not come about until Bram Stoker anyway, so this is a relatively new notion. Even the word vampire is pretty new, probably from the 1700s. So we are dealing with a conception that it has evolved over 11,000 years to finally come up with something with a cape on. But it's a very complicated type of idea of vampire is, and I recommend you get the book on vampires.
Well, that's a nice little plug there.
How about that? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You're on such a roll until you went author on us and slipped it right in.
Or, you know what, they don't even have to buy the book. What I would recommend that you do is get your ticket now for the Provincetown Paracon and see me talk at 9 o'clock in the morning about not only the history of vampires, but the history of vampires in the New England area as well, too.
And then after Ron, you go for breakfast. Make sure you're back for noon, because old Davey here is going to be speaking at the Provincetown Paracon. At noon.
This is unbelievable, exactly. So I'll do the breakfast crowd, and you do the lunch crowd.
Well, I will say this. 9 a.m. is 6 a.m. here on the West Coast. So I can tell you, when you hit the West Coast, you won't have to be speaking at 6 a.m.
You know what? I thought, because I'm on this once a month, I thought actually about moving to the West Coast because it is 2:17 in the morning here, and as I look at the Spaced Out Travelers, the Space Travelers site right now, I see sometimes people start fading off right about 2 o'clock in the morning because this is extremely unnatural for somebody to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning talking about Bigfoot. But I thought about moving out to the West Coast just so I don't have to pull until 3 o'clock in the morning. It would make my life so much easier. But whenever I get to do conferences out on the West Coast, I cannot wait because I do not have to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I do like that. I really do like that. Sleeping in is such a good thing. It happens so rarely for me.
It is, and I am looking forward to it tomorrow. There's been sickness through the family, and everybody's been sick at least once. I actually had to cancel my first show, if you can remember, several months ago because I had strep throat, although I do want to point out that I did make it up later in that month, so my streak is still intact. But, yeah, it's just one of those things, I cannot wait till summer comes because what happens whenever summer comes, Dave, I want to point this out to you and the listeners, that we start at midnight, but by the time we're done at 3 o'clock in the morning, I already have my computer outside with me on the porch, and I can hear the birds start to sing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's one of my little guilty pleasures that I have for doing your show in the summertime.
Well, that's awfully nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Now you know a little bit more about the Crypto Guru, don't you?
There we go. On the Revolution Radio chat room, Karen has a question. She's saying, Ron, have you ever heard or do you know anything about the Boojum? He is the Bigfoot that loved near Waynesville, North Carolina, had a human lover named Annie. A mountain lodge was built over a cave. Boojum dug for gems. The guests complained of the sounds. Did you ever hear that story?
I did. Now, what's going on with that story is there is a condensation, an amalgamation of a lot of different folk tales, folklores, and things like that. So the idea of the thing making noise as it digs, that's actually a European conception of what we would call Tommyknockers. You know, Stephen King had the novel out called Tommyknockers, and that was the idea that there would be these gnome type creatures, getting back to the gnomes, that would go underground and start making sounds, and it sound like something was knocking underground. Also, there are forests over in Europe that are considered haunted because they hear knocking in the forest. Very, very similar to the type of wood knocking that is reported with Bigfoot encounters. So we have these kind of crossover of different type of traditions. But the idea of mining and for a creature to be going underground and so that you can hear it knocking, that's a definitely European Tommyknocker thing. Now, getting back to the idea of the mountain bride that was described in this as well. And this doesn't have to be in rural Appalachia, or this doesn't have to be in rural America. These tales also come from Russia. These tales also come from Tibet. The idea of the wild man taking a human wife. And actually in Russia, there was the report of a wild man actually, or it was a wild woman that was captured. I believe her name was Zena. I believe it was something like that. We could look that up as well too. But she was taken captive, and the men of the village actually mated with her, which I found very, very bizarre. But they actually mated with her, and she produced an offspring, and the offspring looked like what we would call deformed, very pronounced jaw and kind of a brow ridge and things of that nature. But what had happened was they exhumed the body of Zena, and I think it's Zena. I think that's it. Zena, I believe is it, if my memory serves me properly. You have to understand, folks, that Dave and I do not exchange notes before this. We're just going off the cuff on this kind of stuff. So my notes are lacking in this, but what goes on is that she produces a child. They assume that this is the offspring of a wild woman, an almasty, which they call it over there in Russia. But they exhumed the grave of this wild woman and found out that she was indeed a human. However, the DNA that came from the remains showed that she was from equatorial Africa. So she may have been an escaped slave that lived in the wilds of Russia up into the 19th and 20th century, which is interesting in and of itself. Or is it possible that she could have been a remnant population of very primitive yet Homo sapiens, still Homo sapiens, that were able to survive in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia until, the 20th century. These are all very interesting. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Bigfoot to have an interesting story as well. The idea of remnant human populations are just as fascinating to me.
I got a question from Gail in the chat room. She says, off the topic of Bigfoot, on to another one. Do you believe there is a Montauk monster?
Actually, Gail, that's a good question, because that's actually still in the line with the idea of genetic testing, except the Montauk monster seems to be spawned from some sort of U.S. government type of experimentation or chemical leak or something involved mutations of different animals. If anybody would care to look, go to Google Images, put in Montauk monster, and you'll have these little images, these strange little images of what looks like something that was washed up on the beach, but they look very unusual. Now, DNA evidence from these creatures seem to indicate that they are decomposing raccoons and other known animals. And I kind of buy the story that that's what they are, that there has been no leak going on, and people have stumbled across the carcass of a decomposing raccoon or a skunk along a beach area where you would not necessarily find such creatures. And people have just, came back with the urban legend of this Montauk laboratory out there, this government facility on an island that is banned for anybody to enter the island. And this is just part of the urban legend and the mystique that surrounds that particular area. But unfortunately, Gail, I think that the Montauk monsters are nothing more than decomposing raccoons and other known animals. Unfortunately.
Well, you're a heartbreaker when it comes to
I am. I'll tell you what. And I these are fascinating stories. The idea of the chupacabra, that was originally thought too, that this was escape from some sort of government lab down in Central America. And it was, sometimes people even say there was a captured alien that escaped. These are all great stories, but it really doesn't hold water upon further scrutiny. I have to be skeptical because, as we talked about before throughout the program, people do like to hoax and try to pull one over on you. So you have to be necessarily skeptical. But I still have an open mind. But at the very end of the day, after all the research that I've done, it points to the conclusion that no, these are not genetic experimentations. These are just misidentified animals.
Mm-hmm. It's so easy, Ron, to be able to misidentify what people are seeing at night or during the day, because when you see something out of the corner of your eye, you're never quite sure what it was, and we always quickly rush to judge, and we hope that we're seeing things comparatively to what we are truly seeing. Out of everything that you have heard with the reports that you have studied, how can we figure out what is reliable?
Even the justice system is trying to figure that out as well, too. People have been condemned and have actually died due to, misidentification. And we're talking about human beings. So you can imagine if you were out in the woods or driving in your car and you see something that you think is 10 feet tall running through the woods. It's hard for the mind to conceptualize what might be going on. And I think conceptualize is the right word, because what we do is if we cannot definitively know what's going on, our mind kind of fills in the blank. Now, if we are brought up on a lot of programs like Bigfoot, if we see something unusual out in the woods, we're immediately going to come to the conclusion that what we saw was indeed a Sasquatch creature. But that doesn't necessarily have to be what it was. It's just our mind telling it that's what it was, so we can make some sense of our environment and the stimulus that we receive. But yeah, this is all very complicated. This is all very psychological. But human perception is, for the most part, very unreliable. We forget things very easily. We might fixate on one thing and then we change our mind later. So yes, I mean, that's what we have to figure out in not only cryptozoology and paranormal research, but we also have to figure that out, as I said, in the justice system, because human perception is just so faulty.
It almost gets like a cryptid pareidolia. Andy here in the Spreaker chat room actually says, like dead whales in the ocean, after a while they look like a sea monster.
That they do. Sharks as well. A basking shark. So many people have said about that because sharks are made of this cartilaginous material that it starts decaying in a very weird, almost feathery, hairy type of way. So people are reporting seeing these sea monsters wash ashore. When in actuality, it's just the decomposing cartilage of a very large shark. Or like they said with the blubber of a whale, down in St. Augustine, Florida, back in the 1800s, they had this famous blob that washed ashore, and it seems to be nothing more than a decomposing blubber of a whale.
Usually there is a scientific explanation for all of this. Why do you feel that Sasquatch is so undermined by the scientific community?
A few reasons. We had a very interesting conversation a few months ago about giants, and that was the same thing that was going on with giants. Is people were reporting giants for years and years, uncovering their bodies on fields, and the Smithsonian would come in and they would just disappear. Bigfoot does not fit into any scientific paradigm. It actually throws Darwinism on its head. It makes our place in the cosmos a little less, because there's something out there very similar to who we are, still living. So we're not the pinnacle of creation that we like to think that we are. There's a lot of different religious undertones and, racist undertones even, that are these people. If it comes back to Bigfoot, is a flesh and blood animal, and it's tested and it finds out that it is a primitive Homo sapien, then what happens then? I mean, is it afforded the same rights that we are? So these are all very tenuous type of ideas that we have to talk about when we come to why science won't accept Bigfoot. But the reason I don't think science wants to accept Bigfoot is because you have to rewrite books if it exists, and science does not like to rewrite books whenever it comes to human evolution.
Do you think that this creature has something to do with human evolution then?
In the 70s, the idea of the missing link was out there. I think there was even a movie I remember called Bigfoot, Man or Beast, and that was the thing. Is this the missing link? Is this an animal? I don't think so. The Gigantopithecus doesn't have to do anything with our evolution either. We might come from the same type of creature, but there's these branches on the evolutionary tree. So it's not like the next step from Bigfoot is man. It doesn't work that way. There's evolutionary dead ends, kind of like the Neanderthal was an evolutionary dead end. It was a Homo sapien, and it just kind of ended. If Bigfoot is a flesh and blood animal, there's obviously some sort of convergent evolution that went on with it as well as us. That's the reason why it's bipedal. That is the reason why it has the same territory as we have. But it doesn't have any kind of manifested culture. And that being said, then there is a primitive aspect. So is Bigfoot like the wild woman captured in Russia? Is it a remnant or a relic population of an early hominid? Very, very exciting. Either way, whether it be an unfound animal or an Australopithecine maybe. But this is why we are still discussing it and why I'm still out there looking for it.
Question from Dennis at #SpacedOutRadio on Twitter. On Skinwalker Ranch, several prominent journalists and researchers saw a Bigfoot emerge out of a portal. What is your thoughts on this?
The Skinwalker Ranch, and I would love to get there sometime. I did not write about the Skinwalker Ranch in my on Bigfoot book, but I do write about it in my On Dogman book, because there were intelligent dog-like creatures reported on this ranch as well. All very interesting things that were going on there, which leads me to believe that there are earth energies, and these earth energies can produce portals, and it's very possible, maybe even likely, that the Skinwalker Ranch resides in a location where these earth energies are so in tune that portals open up from time to time. But yes, again, when we talk about Bigfoot being interdimensional, the Skinwalker Ranch is a perfect illustration of how these things are able to get from one world into another. And it seems to be that there are, a door that can open and allow them to pass through. Now, if that is happening, I want to have one little caveat here. If that is happening, then science should be able to measure not only the frequency of the door opening, but how it opens and the kind of chemical processes that it goes through. Because if we're able to look at it and see it, it should be able to be measured, and we can probably get to the bottom of what's going on. But we could be dealing with something quantum as well. We could be dealing with a black matter, or the space in between spaces that some people talk about. Again, very, very fascinating field, but still, this is in its infancy as we talk about Bigfoot in relation to quantum physics.
Question from Canadian Joe and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. He's saying there is a theory that Neanderthal did mate with Homo sapiens. Also, we could carry some DNA from them. Do you think this may tie over to the Bigfoot realm as well?
Well, actually, yeah. It's not a theory. It's a fact that we can find strands of Neanderthal DNA in certain populations around the world. And I think that's what was going on with the idea of the wild woman in Russia that I talked about, that she appeared very wild, very hair-covered, how it was reported, very robust and looking. But she was still human enough for the locals to, want to mate with her, and she was able to reproduce. But I think that is the whole point of what we're talking about. We talk about Bigfoot as being an extraterrestrial. We talk about it as being, a genetic experiment, or we talk about it as being from another dimension. But there's another side to this as well, that Bigfoot might not be something like a monster, but it might be a relic population of a Homo sapien. And again, the idea of a Neanderthal walking out there, and we see it and we call it a Bigfoot, that's extremely possible. Now, Neanderthals probably weren't hair covered. They probably weren't 7 feet tall. Actually, they weren't 7 feet tall. They were probably a lot shorter than we are today. But I mean, it's still fascinating to think that our idea of Bigfoot came from relic populations that may have survived up into the 20th century in certain parts of the world, and may even survive to this very day in parts of the world.
Let's get to Eric's question here in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Do you think they, as in Bigfoot, could exist in a different dimension that is just barely out of phase with us, and sightings occur when these two dimensions occasionally sync up?
Yes, that's actually, that's my whole contention about that. And who was the person that asked that question?
Eric.
Eric, what I do is, as a researcher, I look at the different cultures that have the same belief of another dimension. Celtic cultures, in particular, the idea of Halloween and the idea of the veil between this world and the next being at its thinnest on October 31st is something that has a lot of significance for me. So whenever I do my research, I do a lot of research based upon Celtic calendars and on on certain days in the calendar, like cross-quarter days. So whenever you see like Wiccan calendars talking about Beltane or Imbolc or Yule, these names were used to pinpoint particular days within the calendar that had meaning. For instance, midsummer, June 21st, the first day of summer, was called midsummer because it was in between the growing season. So oddly enough, midsummer is actually the first day of summer because it's halfway to fall. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. But if you were an agrarian culture, it would make a lot of sense. But midsummer was a time whenever fairies were believed to come out and play. So I do a lot of my research on these cross-quarter days. One of the most impressive sites that I had ever seen was on an expedition on June 21st with what seemed to be intelligent lights, very, very small pinpoint, almost like LED lights floating around our investigation area. But so whenever I do my research, I try to pull in a lot of different elements. And one of the elements that I look at is the spiritual elements associated with particular times whenever these creatures are supposed to be out there. And it lines up, which is odd. It lines up. Not only does the Celtic calendar line up well with the European calendars from around Europe and places, but it also lines up with Native American ideas as well for like planting seasons and harvesting seasons. So it seems that the cultures that were aligned with the earth, that were attuned to the agricultural rhythm of the earth had a lot of things in common. And one of these common elements was Bigfoot.
Follow-up question from Eric. Do you think there's a way then to detect that vibrational frequency?
Oh, absolutely. There is definitely a way. I am probably not going to be the man to solve this problem. I have a very hard time even using a personal computer, but there would be a way. Yes, that definitely. I don't know if it is a radiation type of energy, like a Geiger counter would be used, or maybe possibly even a magnetic energy. That's something that we have to take into consideration as well. But it seems to be there is a way, a key, if you will, that is used to unlock this door that leads from one world to the other. I think there are sites on the earth, like around Stonehenge and all these traditional sites. Europe talks a lot about ley lines. Not so much in America, but Europe has this idea of ley lines. And along these earth energy lines, there are certain pinpoints where the energy really has a focus. And it's around these areas that a lot of strange things happen. Even to this very day, UFO sightings, crop circles, woodwose activity. That's the British version of the Bigfoot. So I would think that the same thing is going on in America as well, and in Canada as well, in North America, that there are earth energies that from time to time build up, and almost like an old faithful geyser, every now and then, produces enough energy to allow this doorway to open up, and occasionally something walks through. Now, something also could go in there from our world to the other side. So whenever I try to link everything together with the idea of fairy and the goblin universe, there are people that are said to have been abducted by fairies and taken to their world and had to stay there for some time until that doorway opened back up again. But so it works both ways. If a Bigfoot can bleed over into our world and maybe not find its way back, think about it this way. In the other dimension, the Bigfoot dimension, is there a human being that was walking down a road one night and stepped through the portal? Are they over there now and they're seen as the monster in that world? See, these are very interesting philosophical questions, but this is the fascinating thing about cryptozoology and Fortean sciences that that really is a passion of mine.
Eric brings up a good point in our chat room here. He said that could explain the pixelation that Dave, being me, saw by the Bigfoot, or by the cherry tree before I heard the Bigfoot roar.
Yes, yeah. Now, elaborate on that a little bit more if you could there, my friend. You said that was Eric, correct?
Yeah, Eric was asking. But my own Bigfoot experience, a few days after seeing the creature, because a friend on the property where this happened, friends of mine owned 10 acres, and they had a lot of spirit activity around their property. So we were doing a spirit walk, 4 of us, around the property, just trying to see what we could pick up. It was like our own little spiritual zen area for ghost, Bigfoot, UFOs, and whatever. And when we started walking along the side of the house, I felt the feeling that we were being followed. And I turned back and looked, and they had this old cherry tree behind their yard. Or in their backyard, pardon me. And that's where I saw pixelation standing beside this cherry tree. And it was literally about 8 to 10 feet high. And only one other person in the group saw that pixelation out of the 4 of us. And I was explaining it, much looking like when you pixelate someone's face on TV to keep their image off of camera. That's kind of what it looked like. And so when we continued forward walking after about 30 seconds, that's when we heard the roar. And that's where I was able to put 2 and 2 together, that there must be some sort of shape-shifting residence in between the 2 creatures.
That's right, yeah. And the thing is, that's not the first time I've ever heard this story, and I've actually heard this story on other continents as well. The idea of the pixelation. A lot of people, after they saw the movie Predator, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, they say that comes closest to what they had seen. I don't know if that was the same with you or not, but a lot of people are saying that, that's what it was like, that there was some sort of cloaking mechanism used, for lack of a better word. And not to sound outlandish or sound too sci-fi, but it seems to be a way that these creatures are able to interact with our world and not be seen all the time and not being photographed all the time.
I fully agree. Eric's next question for you is, maybe they can see into our dimensions better than we can see into theirs. Might be a visual acuity thing.
A very, very good point. And there's also a precedent in the world of the Fae and the fairy world as well, when we talk about the Goblin universe, that there was something called fairy sight, that there was a sight that certain elemental creatures possessed that we humans couldn't, and it kind of allowed those creatures to see things differently than we do. And it's very possible that we as human beings have evolved out of that, but there are still, creatures out there that are able to straddle two worlds at the same time and look into our world without us allowing to look into theirs.
So where do you think Bigfoot goes on the other side, if they're able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, is it their home? I mean, whatever you talked about the Bigfoot planet. I mean, is that dimension over there the world from which they come? I mean, that's a possibility. Is it another Earth? And it's simply that we humans aren't part of that Earth. It's just as if we didn't become the master class, but the Bigfoot now is the dominant species on that side. That's a possibility as well. Like I said, again, these are fascinating subjects to talk with at length. But at the end of the day, these are all philosophical discussions as well, because we really have no proof yet. So I would think that if any of those budding paranormal researchers out there, especially ghost hunters of all people, I think these are the people that are going to measure these things that are opening and closing. Because a lot of people have suggested that ghosts aren't actually the deceased souls of people, but they are, the residents from the other dimension that occasionally bleed into our dimension. So whenever you're picking up EVPs or picking up, any kind of movements and things, that is the residents of the other world trying to make contact with our world. That's something to think about.
So would you put them almost on the same level as a ghost?
It could be. In Celtic lore, fairies were often seen around graveyards. Also, dogmen are often seen around graveyards. Also, whenever the young lady asked about vampires too are creatures of the liminal zone, the space between. Whenever we think about how human beings structure their culture and their society, it's a very us versus them. They have cemeteries away from populated centers, the out of the way places. The wild places they like to wall off because that's not something where we can interact as well. But all these places, graveyards and the forests and the deserts and lakes, are all wild places where the things that go bump in the night still manifest themselves. And for what reasons? I mean, are these places of natural earth energies? Possibly. Are these creatures from other dimensions able to open up portals on their own? That's possible as well. And if they're able to open up portals on their own, they don't want to do it in the middle of a city where people would, try to kill them. They would do it someplace, out away from human, eyes. That's a possibility as well too. But again, like I said, if somebody out there has an inkling to do this stuff could be measured. If you're on a ghost expedition, try to measure the ambient air quality and the temperatures and such. And these spikes that people report, everybody's talking about these EMF spikes. is that the door opening? Not so much that there's a spirit around, but is that this interdimensional door opening that allow a resident from that other realm to come through, and we see them as ghosts because that's what we are thinking we're dealing with, when actuality they're not.
Do you believe then, if that's the theory, that just maybe, and I'm being extremely hypothetical here, Ron, maybe that when people are seeing a Bigfoot then, that maybe they are looking into a portal in the past?
It's the same way with the Loch Ness Monster, Dave. People have talked about this, that are we actually seeing that creature at present time? Or are we getting a glimpse into, a plesiosaur in that area, on Loch Ness? Are we looking at a primitive human being that, that they had lived at one time, but we're just getting glimpses into the past? Very, very intriguing, isn't it? I mean, very intriguing. People have reported seeing ghosts of Roman soldiers in England when, it might just be that they had this glimpse, a time slip, if you will, and saw what was going on 2,000 years before they were actually there. That's very intriguing. That's very speculative. But of course, I think that makes logical sense as well.
Seem to be getting a lot of rumbling and backwash from your side here, my friend.
I thought that I've had a pretty good connection. I think my throat might be actually giving out.
No, it was background. Your voice sounds great.
Oh, good, yeah.
I think it's the beard.
I
think it's the beard.
I think it might. So that scratching that you hear is not a mouse, up against the microphone. That is my manly beard, just the abominable beard brushing up against the microphone that's doing that. So that makes sense.
Well,
I'm glad you said my voice is holding out, because that's always one of my worries. As soon as 2 o'clock hits, I'm always worried that my voice is going to crack and give out, because my wife usually brings me tea and water, but right around 1:30 or 2 o'clock, she passes out. So I'm all on my own for the last hour.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. we're gonna have to change that somehow.
We are definitely going to have to do that.
Ashley, wake up. We're going to need a bell. We're going to need a bell or something. I got to. We got about.
Go over well.
No, I wouldn't either with my wife. Hey, we got a couple more questions to go here, and we got about 6 minutes left with you. I know.
Time just flew by. I'll tell you what, it flies by. It seems like I just started to talk.
I know.
20 minutes ago, but yeah. Dave, you're an excellent host, and these listeners are excellent listeners. So, we should go another hour. You know what? Why don't you call your affiliates and tell them we're going an extra hour?
Once I get some advertising on the website, once I get 100,000 people chatting on my show, and I'm almost there, then I will seriously look, once I can dump my radio job or my daytime job to concentrate on the radio show, I'll extend this to 4 to 5 hours.
There you go. And then that's when I would have to move necessarily to the West Coast, because I unless you would have multiple guests. But, the thing is, once you have the crypto guru on, you want to listen to him for 5 hours. Naturally, you would like
5
to listen
hours.
For 5 hours. Exactly right.
Dude, we would have to plan a hell of a show for that. 5 hours of guru talk. We'd have to call it guru talk. We'd even take callers, maybe.
That would be funny. That would be very, very funny.
Absolutely. Hey, Joyce has a question here. She is asking, could frequency, light, and crystals aid in opening portals or vortices?
Hey, crystals have been used for millennia, to talk about healing and to talk about communing with the gods, or, whatever. Yeah, I would say that definitely, if it would work. Why not at least try it? The idea of crystals being in tune with a certain frequency and being capable of opening up, the inner eye, maybe it's also possible to open up an actual doorway to look into another world. Very possible.
And let's get to Gail's question here, Guru.
Okay.
If Bigfoot comes to our dimension, could he be coming here as a rite of passage, a spiritual Bigfoot quest?
Yeah, see, I actually mentioned that about an hour ago. Looking at the analogies in the Native American culture, whenever their young would go out into the woods on a spirit quest. Yeah, absolutely. Would not be something to think about this? That when we see Bigfoot out in the woods, it's actually a rite of passage. They take, a juvenile Bigfoot and they kind of send him over into our dimension to kind of make a run of it, to find out about, what is his place in the universe as compared to, who we are. So, yeah, these are very, very cool ideas. But, yeah, I think that is a plausible. If the dimensions do exist and we do see Bigfoot coming over here, the reason that it comes over here might be for spiritual purposes.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Yep.
I would agree with that. I wonder if it is a spiritual creature, though.
See, that's the thing. The Neanderthal definitely had an idea of spirituality because they buried their dead. Now, people talk about why we can find no Bigfoot bodies. Now, would that be interesting if they buried their dead? If they are not just, simply animal? Why don't we find more scat and things? It's possible they have, the use of certain areas where they go to the bathroom and about footprints disappearing. Maybe they do this deliberately. If we are talking about a remnant population of relic human beings, these are all worthwhile questions to ask. Maybe that's the reason why these things are staying hidden. Maybe that's the reason why these things are able to stay so elusive. If these are self-aware creatures, they know who they are, and they know who we are through convergent evolution, and they know that it's dangerous to be around us. Well, the chance of those kind of things staying hidden in the woods is so much more plausible than to think that there's a hairy beast type of creature roaming around out there. So these are all great questions. I think what is going to go on, Dave, with this show is we the Bigfoot UFO connection. We've actually proposed more questions than we asked, but I think that's a hallmark of any good show.
Quick question from Eric here. Do you think then, once again it's hypothetical, once they die, they go out of phase with our own dimension?
Oh, right. So it's like it's a biological thing that there needs to be some sort of spark in there to stay. That's a pretty cool idea too. How would that work though? If we're looking at the idea of physics and the doorway is allowed to open and it comes on through, then even if it was a metaphysical creature, you would think that the body would remain because it was able to come on over here as a corporeal form. I have a completely open mind about this, but if the creature is a spiritual creature, maybe its thought form, its body form, kind of vanishes because its thought form has left.
And on that note, my friend, we got to start wrapping things up.
Wow, I'll tell you what, this was a great show. Yeah, my voice is just about gone, so I will be looking forward to March the 8th. How about that?
I am looking forward to it just as much.
Yes,
because you are the crypto guru, my friend.
Oh, man, I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. Ron, why don't you give us a quick rundown of your website and where people can find your books now?
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, you can still, no, I guess you can't go. Well, you can try Amazon. They still might be out there until this whole switchover goes out. So try Amazon. You can go to the cryptoguru.net, cryptoguru.net, not but that's my website. So you can find things about me on there as well, too. And if you folks like to hear me talk about certain things, I host 2 shows on the Paranormal UK network. I have the Transatlantic Para Radio Show with Andy Mercer 1 time a month. And then I have the Inside the Goblin Universe with Colin Schneider 3 times a month. So if you would be so inclined, you can listen to me 4 times a month on the UK Paranormal radio station, and of course 1 time a month here, the second Wednesday of every month on Spaced Out Radio. So I try to stay busy and I try to be out there. But yeah, I would go to Amazon.com. If you can't find anything on there, you can get in touch with me on Facebook or whatever, and we'll be able to hook you up with a book. But we'll make it happen.
And we'll see you in a couple months in Boston, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate it. We'll see everybody later.
Ron, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal is playing in the background on the Spaced Out Radio side. He brings us in and takes us out of every episode of this show. Bumblefoot, the official sound of SOR. Tomorrow night on the show, Barry Strom joins us. We're live channeling and getting some weird questions answered. We'll tell you more about it tomorrow, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, all of you have a good night. Remember, you can download this show on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Subscribe to us there as well. Check it out. Have some fun. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Remember, tell a friend. Let them know we're here. We're ready. I want to quit my day job so I can do this full time, but I need your help. Then I'll expand the show. We need more listeners. Bring it up. Rock it out. Get your horns up. Get your air guitar going. I'm out. Later.